Testing, testing.
I can hear you fine, Mr. Ellsworth.
How about me? Can you hear me, Kelly?
I sure can.
Fantastic.
I had to increase the volume. I like your T-shirt, David.
Well, we got a game tonight, so I'm here, and that's what they have DVRs for. So don't anybody, if anybody knows the score, don't tell me.
I won't.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Evening.
Make sure we all hear each other. Y'all have a good day?
So far.
Oh, good. It'll be cold for Christmas, they say.
They're saying we might get a little snow.
Yeah, I know it. Unreal. I'll mute now. I just want to make sure we can all hear each other good.
Sorry, guys, I'm driving.
No wreck.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hey, Carolyn, how are you?
Hello, Miss Carolyn. How are you, honey? Is that Lola here?
Could be.
Oh, you got a new one too, didn't you?
I do.
I forgot about that. Roger was telling me. What's this one's name?
Atticus.
Atticus. Nice. Now, same color or?
Yes.
Nice. Nice.
Ms. Kelly, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, I'd like to call the order of the special call meeting of the Kingston City Council. Mr. Brown, I would like to ask you if you would give an invocation and I'll lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you pray with me, please? Our Heavenly Father, once again, we come to you with grateful hearts, thanking you for the opportunity to meet as a body and make the decisions for the city of Kingston. We ask that you'd be with us during these decisions, that each one of us do the best that we can, and that we hope that the electoral of Kingston will be happy with our decisions tonight. At this time of the season, we want everyone to ever be mindful of what we're celebrating the Christmas season for, to remember your son, Jesus Christ, on the date that he was born. We give you praise every day. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Clerk, you please call the roll.
Councilmember Brown,
Present.
Councilmember Childs, Councilmember Childs,
I think he's having a hard time getting off mute.
Present.
There it is.
There we are.
Vice Mayor Humphreys,
Present.
Councilmember Stockton,
Present.
Councilmember Wright,
Present.
Mayor Neal.
Present. Number 4 is consideration of adopting the procedure for accepting nominations and voting on the council vacancy. I'll give this to Sandy and Mr. Bowling to go over.
Sandy's being silent, so I would assume that means he wants me to take the lead on this. I sent you out in the packets some proposed procedures. Obviously, again, it's up to you all how you want to move forward. I just kind of outlined how I thought this could go. Really leave this open for you all to discuss, and if you want to go with these, great. If you don't, you have a better idea, certainly won't hurt my feelings. Just trying to give you some ideas. So.
Mayor, you all are free as the board. You have no instructions other than to have for you all to vote for the selection of a council member and follow Robert's Rules of Order. And among other things, Robert's Rules of Order say that you all have the opportunity to establish whatever procedure that you want. The fact that this one has been submitted to you all can be proposed by way of motion and modified, amended, whatever you all want to do.
Okay. Let me hear from council and see what on these rules that we've got right now that were drawn up, what kind of ideas they have about it.
Mayor,
Yes.
I actually have a question. If I interpret this correctly, if we vote in a round and there's a tie, say 3 people get 1 vote, and then we have a tiebreaker round, does one person then advance and the other 2 that got 1 vote are put off, or then will we have another tiebreaker round between those 2? Are you following?
Well, in the idea that I outlined here, if you had a tiebreaker vote, the high vote getter in the tiebreaker round would be the one to move forward. One thought on that while you brought that up, something I didn't really outline well enough in this was the premise that if you have a round and there's and somebody gets no votes, then they would be the one to drop off of that round, and it wouldn't trigger a tie. You'd go on to the next round. That somebody no vote would automatically drop off. But to answer your question, the intent that I foresaw was that in a tiebreaker vote, only the high vote getter in that round would move back to the voting round. So,
But I mean, if
Thank
there
you.
were two left in the tie, they would both be off then? There wouldn't be another tiebreaker round?
yes.
Okay.
That's the way on here. But again, that's up to you guys. You can fix this any way you want. But those were my thoughts. So.
And once again, Mayor, whatever you all decide, whatever procedure you decide to proceed with, as long as you stick with your procedure, you're free to adopt a procedure.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Brown.
I've got two comments. One is that David has pretty well answered what I wanted to do on one of them, but I would like to add to this that no tiebreaker rule will be used if anyone has been voted off in a single round. So that would take care of the first round, for instance. We all know that somebody is going to come off this list the very first round because there's 7 applicants and there's only 6 votes. So mathematically, somebody comes off. So there would be no tiebreaker in that round, even if you had 4 people tied with 1. That you couldn't use a tiebreaker if you had already eliminated somebody. And then the second thing that I read over it was that I want to make sure that where it says that to be appointed, and it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's a 6th bullet down. To be appointed, a candidate must receive 4 votes in a voting round. Now then, if we are in a tiebreaker and somebody gets 4 votes, I don't think that means that they are elected. That means that they have to go to the other room where the other person is at that's waiting, and then we vote again. And that nobody carries votes on with them unless we vote for them again in the next round. So if we had a first round, I don't think there would be a tiebreaker. Second round, there could be a tiebreaker. And then we go to the tiebreaker rule. And if you had somebody sitting over here with 3 votes waiting, and then somebody received 4 votes in the tiebreaker, I don't want any misunderstanding to the candidates that just because they got 4 rounds and a tiebreaker vote, that just moved them up to a position on the main ballot. In other words, it's almost like almost like a primary vote, if you will. You're eliminating to get to the main seat.
And you have that opportunity, Councilman Brown.
Okay, if there's no objections to what Mr. Brown wanted to add to his procedure, Mr. McPherson, do we need to vote on accepting these procedure for nomination
Yes.
and vote? We do?
Yes, you do, Mayor. You need to establish your procedure by motion, a second, and a vote.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve the procedure for nominating and voting?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Riser, second.
I'll second it.
And a second by Mr. Childs. Council, anyone got any more issues with the way we're going to do this? It's not going to be easy. It'd be a lot easier if we were in the same room together. So it's going to be a little tougher.
Well, then I guess, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I need to make an amendment to the motion then to make sure that we don't use this tiebreaker along with a 0 count. I would move that we insert at the bottom that a tiebreaker may not be used in any voting round when someone else has been eliminated.
So that's a amendment to the motion.
That's a motion to amend.
So I have a motion to amend the procedure. Is there a second on that motion?
I withdraw the motion, Mr. Chairman.
We'll go back to the original proposed procedure for nominations. Anyone else on council have anything to say about it?
Again, I'll have to ask the question for my purpose on clarification. So if in round one, we eliminate one and we've got 4 people tied, we're going straight to a tiebreaker.
I believe that's the way it is written up.
Okay.
Am I correct?
Okay, just as long as I know, that's good. I'm good with that as long as everybody else is.
I think Mr. Bowling needs to address that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I could, of course, it does say in here that any candidate receiving 0 votes in a voting round will automatically be dropped for consideration. Just to go off what Mr. Brown's saying, he's right. It is contradictory. This was just something I didn't think of when I was writing all this up. But the way it's written, the scenario would happen would be if you had a 0 vote getter, that person would drop off, and you could also go onto a tiebreaker round. So in essence, what you would have would be candidates who weren't the low vote getter in that round still being forced into a tie-off. The intent would be, I think, like Mr. Brown said, Councilman Brown said, that, you know, in that case, someone getting 0 would be the low vote getter. So my intent when I put this together was not that that would trigger a tie, because the tie is for the low vote getter. So I think what Councilman Brown is alluding to was my intent in putting this together. I just didn't communicate that well. So I don't know if in this motion, if you want to just interpret that with the correction I just said, but I think it certainly makes the most sense that a 0 vote getter would be the low vote getter in that round, or 0 vote getters would be the low vote getters in that round.
Okay, I think I understand it. And Mr. Bowling, Mr. McPherson, we're going to rely on you guys a lot in this, keep us kind of straight of what's going on.
Recognizing that neither one of us are parliamentarians, we have any kind of jobs, but that's not one of them.
All right. So again, I'll ask, is there any more questions on the procedure for nominating and voting?
Mayor.
Levi, do you have a question? I'm going to yield the floor to you. Normally we wouldn't do this, but this is a different situation. If you've got a question, go ahead and ask.
Well, I was trying to find out, because it sounded like we're on the first round, there would be a double elimination. The 0 vote getter would be dropped, and then whoever in the tiebreaker round, and whoever had the least votes in the tiebreaker round would be dropped. I don't know if that's what Mr. Brown is trying to, if that's a question that he's come across, or are we saying there could be possibly 2 eliminated in the first round, a 0 vote getter if one, and the tiebreaker if so?
I believe that's correct.
Okay,
Mayor,
thanks.
Just to clarify, and again, I'm not speaking for Councilman Brown. He can speak of his intention, but the intent of this would be that if there's a 0 vote, there would be no tiebreaker. So if you had 3 candidates that got 1 vote and 1 candidate that got 0, the 0 vote getter would drop off that round, and then you would go on to the next round. There would be no tiebreaker if there's a 0 vote in that round.
Mr.
Mayor, if I may, I think that's what Mr. Brown was trying to do with the amendment. Now, I don't know whether anybody else wants to remake that amendment so that it is clear for future generations. But I think that's if I wrote down the essence of that a tiebreaker would not be used in any round where someone had been eliminated for a lower number.
Mr. Mayor, that's exactly what I was trying to do. As you know, our minutes speak for us tonight, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. And it wasn't clear. It's obvious it's still not clear to some, but I'm good with having double eliminations. Doesn't make any difference to me, as long as everybody understands that before we start.
Okay, council, any more questions? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, you call the roll on the procedure for nominating and voting.
Councilmember Brown,
Again, this was no amendment and it's just exactly the way it reads. Yes.
Councilmember Childs, Councilmember Childs,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Humphreys,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Wright,
Yes.
Mayor Neal.
Aye.
6 ayes.
Okay. Here we go. Number 5, consideration of nominations and appointment to fill the city council seat vacated by the passing of Councilmember Brown.
Mr. Mayor, without objection from other council members present tonight, I move that we place the name of David Doonan, Bruce Elsrod, Carolyn Granger, Jeff Griffiths, Levi Longford, Jody Tipton, and Don White. I nominate all of those without objection.
So I have a nomination to nominate the 7 candidates that were interviewed last week for this council seat.
I'll second the motion.
Doesn't require a second,
Doesn't
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
Oh, it
doesn't
does not.
require a second. Just need to know if there's an objection or not, I think, Mr. Mayor.
Right. With no objections, has anyone else got any more nominations from the council?
If this passes, I've got another motion.
Seeing no other nominations, these nominations cease. Now we call the roll on the motion to appoint, or not to appoint, to put all these 7 on the floor.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Childs,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Humphreys,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Wright,
Yes.
Mayor Neal.
Aye.
6 ayes.
Okay. Mr. Brown, do you have something else?
I think you just did that, as long as we don't have, my next motion was going to move that we cease nominations, but I think you included that in the vote.
Yes. All right. So now the clerk will go down the roll of the council, and each council member will vote for his or her choice for council. So,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
may I ask a question here of the city attorney before we proceed with voting?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. McPherson, if we do have a candidate that is on any other board within the city and they are elected to this position, would they then have to resign, or could they stay on the board?
I'm not aware of the situation, and I would probably defer a little to David Bowling. I do not believe, yes, if there's somebody who is on a board and it becomes a conflict, they would be required to resign from that board. But I don't know I don't know exactly where that comes from or to. But it's just like any others. We have a charter amendment that says that if you are in one position, you would have to resign before you accepted the new one. David, have I missed anything about that?
Well, the ordinance, and I think the planning commission would be the board in question on this, and I would say that ordinance is vague on this. It does call that there is one council representative. There's a mayor and a council representative on the planning commission, but it does not say that other council members can't be on there. So again, I would yield to you to what the legal interpretation of that ordinance is, but the way I read it, the individual could stay on. It certainly wouldn't be the council rep, but I don't know.
David, that'd be a matter for us to discuss and research, but initially my judgment would be that they would have to relinquish one position to have the other.
Okay, thank you.
And that may be something we need, we would have to get an MTS opinion on. If you read that, I would recommend just, anyone taking a look at that in the zoning ordinance, and then we'll go from there. But I don't think it's necessarily clear in that part of it anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else before we start? Ms. Jackson, will you start calling down the council members?
Councilmember Brown.
What?
Councilmember Childs.
Doonan.
Vice Mayor Humphreys.
Griffiths.
Councilmember Stockton.
Griffiths.
Councilmember Wright.
Langford.
Mayor Neal.
Tipton.
Mayor, we have 1 vote for David Doonan, 2 votes for Jeff Griffiths, 1 vote for Levi Langford, 1 vote for Jody Tipton, and 1 vote for Don White.
Okay. So now it goes to the runoff between Mr. Doonan, Mr. Langford, Mr. Tipton, and Mr. Wright. Am I correct, Mr. City Manager?
As these rules were written and interpreted, yes.
Okay. So in round 2, it'll be for one of those 4 that got 1 vote, correct?
Mayor,
Yes,
I would probably not,
Mr.
I would
Griffiths.
probably, go ahead, David. I would probably not refer to that as round 2 because all you're doing is your tiebreaker at this point. This has not gone to round 2 yet.
Okay. All right.
Yes, I would agree with that. And Mr. Griffiths will move forward to voting round 2. And we'll have a tiebreaker vote between Mr. Doonan, Mr. Langford, Mr. Tipton, and Mr. White.
Well, I guess this goes back to the question I had. We have 4 people here with 1 vote. So I guess the top vote getter will go on. Does that mean the other 3 are then out? Or will there be another vote between those 3?
I think if one of them comes out and has the majority of the votes, they will go to the second round, where it'll be between them and Mr. Griffith. So if there's a tie of 3-3, would Mr. Bowling would do another roll on off there if it was a tie 3-3?
No, the way this was written, the candidate getting the majority of the votes in the tie-breaking round moves forward. If there's a tie in the tie-breaking round, if it was a 3-3 tie in the tie-breaking round, nobody would move forward. The tie would not be broken. So of these 4, whoever breaks the tie will move forward into round 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the reason what's fixing to happen is the reason I made the motion a while ago, or attempted to.
See from here. All right, Madam Clerk, call the council roll for one of the 4 candidates from the round 1.
Councilmember Brown.
What?
Councilmember Childs.
What?
Vice Mayor Humphreys.
What?
Councilmember Stockton.
What?
Councilmember Wright. Councilmember Wright.
Langford.
Mayor Neal.
Tipton.
Mayor, we have 1 vote for Levi Langford, 1 vote for Jody Tipton, and 4 votes for Don White.
So Don White goes to the second round, and it'll be between Don White and Jeff Griffiths. Am I correct, Mr. Bowling? Okay. Madam Clerk, call the roll on the council.
I know who we got for candidates, please.
We have Mr. Griffiths and Mr. White.
Councilmember Brown, Councilmember Brown,
Griffiths,
Councilmember Childs,
White.
Vice Mayor Humphreys,
Griffiths.
Councilmember Stockton,
Griffiths.
Councilmember Wright, Councilmember Wright,
Griffiths.
Mayor Neal.
Griffiths.
Mayor, we have 5 votes for Mr. Griffiths and 1 vote for Mr. White.
That means Mr. Griffiths was appointed to the seat vacated by Mr. Brackett. Correct, Mr. McPherson?
Means that he has been elected to that seat, and he can assume that seat, having been duly elected. That's correct, Mayor.
Okay.
He will, of course, need to take his oath of office before he actually assumes the seat, but it's just like any other election. He is elected, and now he has to take the oath of office in order to fill the seat.
Right. And we'll get to that in just a minute. I want to thank all you guys that put in for this. One of the toughest things I've had to do as mayor so far is replace Mr. Brackett on council. This has not been easy for me or the rest of the council. I want to thank you guys for putting your name out there and showing that people still care about Kingston and want to help out in Kingston. I want to thank you all. Mr. Griffiths. Thank you, Mr. Doonan. Appreciate it. Mr. Griffiths, it's first chance you get, if you can get down to City Hall pretty much as soon as you can to get sworn in. I was told today if we let it go past the holidays and we get pushing up on the 60 days that we may end up in an election, and we definitely don't want to do that if you're going through this. So if you can get, I'll have Mr. Bowling get in touch with you and or Ms. Jackson, and when you can get stuff straightened up, get over there and get that done.
Mayor Neal, I took off rest of the year, so I'm free. I'm free tomorrow. So whatever will work out best for the city. I appreciate all the votes, and those who didn't vote for me, I respect that, and I'll try to work with everybody and hopefully learn the job and do what's best for the city of Kingston.
Thank you very much. That being all on this agenda for this special call meeting, this meeting is adjourned.
Congratulations, Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. And
Congratulations.
go ahead. Yeah, and everybody that put in for it, I appreciate their concern for the city also.